Today's session is going to be on empowering your workflow with the Approvals Kit. So what I'll do is I'll just quickly share the details of background about the Approvals Kit and how it is configured and how it works, and also what are the improvements that's been done recently. And then we'll just see a quick demo as well of how it works behind the scene and the data, how it's been stored, all the stuffs. Okay. And just a quick intro about myself. I'm Jeeva. For who are having troubles with pronouncing my name as Jeevarajan, I prefer to go with Jeeva because I know it's a hard name to pronounce. And I'm from the future. Pretty much it's Thursday morning, 9:35 here. So you can ask me new product updates that's been released that you might not know. I should be able to help with that. And then, I have 12 years of experience in Dynamics 365. I'm Microsoft MVP for the last 4 years and Microsoft MCT, and also a community leader for Auckland user group and Singapore user group. With that, let's start with the Approvals connector. Yeah, so most of us know, and you might have seen this slide many times in the Microsoft presentations, that over 90% of our the Microsoft's customers or the customers who are using Power Platform uses Approvals, not Approvals Toolkit, but Approvals connector. And for the complex approvals, we always have to depend. So far, we have been depending on creating a custom logics, like having custom tables to capture the for things like delegation, things like out of office, and those kind of stuffs. We have to write custom API calls and connectors to check the out of office from the Graph API. Or if you want to talk about delegating to someone else when particular approval is not available, then you have to write a custom table to capture that, and then have that configuration master table and those kind of stuff, right? That's what we have been doing for a while. And since last December, so what Microsoft PowerCat team does is they released something called Approvals Kit, and it's still in public preview. I don't think it's in generic yet. Sorry, I didn't check it today morning. But yeah, it's still in public preview. The difference between these two is the basic approval connectors, as you can see in this one, as I just mentioned, the approvals history. For the first one is approvals history. That's not you'll not be able to see the approvals history in the out of the box connector. Either you have to build your custom logics, like building a custom table to capture that, and then and show it to the users. In the approvals kit, you can see the approvals history, because it's all stored in the Dataverse as data, and then you can have multi-stage approvals in the approvals kit as an out of the box. When I say out of the box, I'll just show you what are the prerequisite setup that needs to be done. But the thing is, on top of that, to build all of these things, you will not need any code. So pretty much it's all low-code interface that the team has built, and it's going to be very similar to what we have for the Power Automate. And then we got delegated approvals covered in Approvals Kit, and also out of office. And if there's any work days and holidays being planned for the resources, that's been covered as well. And the only difference is, of course, it comes with the cost, because when I say it comes with the cost, there is no separate cost associated to Approvals Kit itself. It just requires premium connector because we are using Dataverse table and Dataverse. We are reading and writing data from Dataverse. That's why. And the scenario that we're going to just see today is going to be this is not the scenario we're going to see. It's a sample scenarios that we have been common in scenario like approvals, like for example, document approval, your invoice approvals, your work order approvals, your codes approvals, right? Or those kind of stuff that we see in day-to-day basis, or one of the classic example where we can use Approvals Kit, because those requires complex approvals in terms of the amount, in terms of the customer, in terms of the priority, those kind of stuff, right? And also it could be a simple travel request, or it could be expense approvals, and also it could be any other approval process that might be related to your business that you have extended with the standard connector. You might consider moving it to Approvals Kit once it's generally available, because that will provide you, the super user, or your citizen developers, or even as a pro dev, it provides an opportunity to create those complex approval process without any custom development as much as possible. We can just use the interface that it comes up with, and then this approval component can be added as a subcomponent of any of your solutions. So in the example that we're going to see today, you'll see how this approval connector will be added as another action in the Power Automate, and then we will be consuming it. So Without further ado, okay, so before going to demo, I just want to show you about the what we're going to see today. So, so let's consider three different personas. So one of them would be like, admin, which is like system admin, who will be setting up the environment, setting up the policies, setting up, importing the solution, those kind of stuffs. And then we consider like, Charlotte as another example. Today, I'm just going to use my admin ID as well itself. But, you can consider that Charlotte is kind of a super admin, super user, and approvals administrator, those kind of role where she basically she would be able to create an approval on herself without requiring any IT support, because this platform is going to pretty much provide a low-code interface for her to create it. And once she creates the approval kit, because she knows the business as a super user, and she also knows how to use the approvals kit, then she will be able to just create as much as possible as per the business requirement. And considering the other person who is Alicia is going to be, let's say, sales manager or region manager who's going to approve it, she can just approve it in Teams or Outlook, because it's going to just use a standard approvals architecture behind the scene. And yeah, this is the user journey that we're going to see today. Like admin creates the environment and imports the business toolkit, approvals kit, and then Charlotte as a super user configures the kit, creates the approval, and then it creates a Power Automate approvals to basically to manager, who is Alicia in this case, and she approves it. And based on the feedback or along the way, Charlotte can keep improving the approvals as required. And the scenario that we're going to see today is pretty standard out of the box scenario. It's all documented well in the Learn. I will share you the details of these materials and Learn materials and GitHub, which you can refer. But it's no, I'm just using the app in a day model-driven apps, which is to basically order a coffee machine. And if the price is greater than 400, it's going to go for multi-stage approval. If it's less than 400, it's just going for a single level approval. And when it is trying to do the approve, it's going to consider the out of office, holiday, and work schedule as well. And based on that, it will redirect the approval to a dedicated person when that particular approver is not available. So that's a scenario we're going to see today. And this is the very high-level architecture of the approvals kit. As you can see, the first thing is the process designer. So that's the interface that we will use to create the approval itself. And behind the scene, each of the stages and nodes, which is part of the approval, gets stored in the design tables or the tables behind the scene in the Dataverse. And in the runtime, what happens is when we import the solution approvals kit, it comes with a bunch of Power Automate cloud flows, and those cloud flows will be listening to the data entries and the events like data changes in those records, and then it will keep triggering the next set of approvals accordingly. And the next one is very recently the team has also provided the Power BI dashboard. I don't have it for the today's demo yet. It's just released in the April release. And that is pretty much, we can download it, the PBX file, and then run it and see where are the current process spending and where it is. It's basically kind of gives a high-level overview of the current ongoing process, because you can't see these levels in the Power Automate run history itself, so which you'll see shortly. And with that, I'll just quickly bring up my demo environment. Yeah. So this is the interface that you're gonna see. So once we import the solution file, I'll show the setup that's required after this demo. But once we import that particular solution, we're gonna have an app called Business Approval Management app. So this app will be used by the persona that we saw, like Charlotte, who will be like a citizen developer, or could be admin as well, who pretty much creates and manages the approvals. Those complex approvals. So this is the home page that they're going to see, and they're going to just see the list of approval workflows that's been created in progress, and what kind of what level of approvals has been received so far, and those kind of pretty basic stuffs. And to start creating a new approval, so we have to go to the approvals designer, and then from the approvals designer, so if I just open my existing approval, so what I do, if I just open it as it is, you're going to see all the backend data, how it is pretty much stored, which I just show in the architecture. and which will be used by the Power Automate to the next level of to do to send the approvals and capture the response and send it to the next approvals as such. But at the same time, if instead of opening it as a record, if you just open it in the process designer, so you're going to see it will open a pretty much similar interface like Power Automate. Yeah, so this is the interface that basically helps us to create the approvals. So the first set, when you create approval toolkit, you're going to have a blank canvas here. And I think it will be small. Let me zoom in. Hope this is better. Yeah, so it will be a pretty much blank canvas when you create a new approvals. And the first thing you do is pretty much you add a stage. So when I add a stage, I just need to give the name to the stage. So I just give it as a first level approval, and I'm not giving any condition at the moment. And what I'm doing is the first level of approval, it always comes to the person to whom I configured. So in this case, I just add a node inside the stage. So you can have multiple nodes inside a stage. And this node pretty much I added like, I need to have approval, and I selected the approval type as everyone must approve. Or you can, it's pretty much these things you might have seen in the standard approvals connector. So which is pretty much everyone must approve, or everyone must reject, first to respond, or no. You can have your custom responses. And then what I just chose everyone should approve, and I just added Dan. If I want to add more personas here or more people here, I can always go and add more so that everyone will be approving before it goes to the next stage as it is. I'll just leave it with Dan at the moment. And you can see this notification. I just see the default notification, and there's a delegation rule, which I'll come to this one shortly. So once I do that, I just save this. And what I've done is just first level of approval. I'm just waiting. And once Dan has approved, what it does is it goes to second level of approval. For this, what I'm doing is I'm just adding a new stage. So you can always add more stages like this. Like you click on this, it will add a new stage. So I just added a new stage for my second level of approval. And when I try to create a new stage, it basically shows up with this interface where you can provide the name and description, and in the conditions, what I did is you have a switch statement and else statement, if else statement or none. So I am just using if else statement for this as a condition. And here I'm just trying to get the parameters from the Power Automate. So before retrieving the inputs from the Power Automate, you need to define the variables. So for that, we can use the variables here. So you can see I just added two variables. One is of price, which is of data type number. Other one is name and data type of text. And I can add more, like you see the data types like date time, Boolean, email as such, right? You can receive the emails and then you can process based on that as well. So once I define the variables, what I'm doing is I'll just open this stage again. So I'm just saying the rest. I just want to get the input variable, which is uses thing called source for request data. If you want to use the previous nodes output, like similar to what you get in the Power Automate itself, you can use the previous node outcome. Here I'm just using request data because I want this to be received as an input from the consuming Power Automate. So I just had it as a request data, and in the request data you can see now I can choose one of the variables that I selected. I created. So I'm just choosing price for this, and then I'm just using the operation, any of the operations, standard operations, and using greater than or equal to. And here I can have a request data again from the input. I just can set up a static value. So I'm just using a static value, which is of $400 at the moment, right? So what I've done so far is first level of approval, the moment someone submits the request for the machine order, it comes to Dan. And second level of approval, if the particular order is greater than certain amount, it goes to Alicia. Yeah, that's what we have done so far. Now to make it more complex, what we can do is, or to basically handle the availability of Alicia's, what we can do is, if I just open Alicia as this node, so I just open this node first. So if it's greater than 400, I'm just going no system what needs to be done, and if it's less than 400, I'm not doing anything because I'm not going to go for second level of approval if it's less than 400. If it is greater than 400, what I'm trying to do is get the manager to approve, as we saw in the presentation. So I'm just giving the name again and then choosing the approval type again, and I'm searching the user, and then I've chosen Alicia in this case. And here in the delegation role, I've chosen that, timeout or out of office. So if you see this, you'll have 4 different options. None as a delegation role. Basically, you're not creating any delegation role for that people, for that person. And then you can have a timeout, or you can have out of office, or you can have both. So timeout pretty much says if the person gets the approval request, if that person, how many days that person, the approval can stay with that person before it goes to the delegated person. So let's say it can be given in actual days, or it can be given in business days. So if I go with actual days, it's just gonna ignore the work day of Alicia. It's just gonna consider the actual days. If it's business days, it's gonna consider the work days of Alicia based on the work profile, and then wait until that many days, and then if still Alicia hasn't responded, it will go to a delegated person. That's what this timeout setting means. And out of office is pretty much when she's out of office, it eventually goes to the delegated person. So where do we set the delegated person is if I just open Alicia's profile. So you can see I have a bunch of approvers here. So I have this many approvers configured. So if I open Alicia's profile, who is one of our approver, so the moment you add it, creates a record here, and you can see Alicia as a delegated person as Alan Stina. So whenever Alicia is either out of office or hasn't responded within the given timeout days, it will the approval will be sent to Alan so that the approval doesn't get lost, right? That's the whole agenda. So before the April release, what happened was for the out of office, the approvals kit to configure the out of office for the approvals kit, you have to set the out of office here, unfortunately. So it doesn't. It wasn't picking up from the your Outlook users Outlook settings. But since the April release, the team has provided a separate solution, and then there's a set of configuration that needs to be done. Once that is done, based on the user's Outlook profile, pretty much the out of office will be considered. So we don't need to explicitly set it here. But now, since I don't configure that one, the recent release, you can see for this to work, I need to just set the out of office to yes. And then other thing is the work profile. Since we are talking about a work day and non-working day, so it's similar to the resource working calendar and organization calendar. And we'll have the work profile of Alicia and then the holiday calendar of Alicia. So in terms of reading this, if you have, let's say, customer service or field service implementation, and if you have work hours created there, I'm not sure how does it going to impact this one yet, because it's not implemented yet. Once it is, that's a feedback we've given, and we'll need to wait and see whether that will be considered. Otherwise, it's going to be a separate configuration here to be considered in the approvals kit. So you can, once you set the work profile, once you set the delegate, and once you are out of office, the approval goes to the delegated person if it satisfies the out of office or the approve or the work holiday scenario. So with what I'll do is once I'll come back to the process again, considering the interest of time. So once you create this one, what we have to do is we have to save this. So once we save this, we should publish this one. So this maintains a separate version history. Even before the version history was implemented or announced in Power Automate, this had version history. So you can see the list of versions that was pretty much published previously, and you can always go ahead and pick any of the previous version as well and start using it. So if there is any update you have done and then that's not working as expected, you can always go back to the previous version and then that will be used. So now we have created the approvals. Now we have the person, its delegation, all these things done. And once it's published, what we do is we go to the Power Automate. And let me just quickly show. Yeah, so what I have is create a simple Power Automate. So whenever a row is ordered in a certain table in Dataverse, based on the app that I'm going to use for the demo, that app pretty much drops a record in this table. whenever record is added in that table, so I just add a new action. In that new action, you can pretty much go to your custom, and once you have that imported, you can see the approval kit is pretty much imported. And once you have the approvals kit, you can choose the version here. So you can see I have two approvals which I have there, and you can see its version is mentioned here, version 3. If I go ahead and roll back to my previous version, which is version 2 here, for example, and once you come and refresh the Power Automate, you can see you'll be choosing the version 2, not the version 3. That's how you get to choose the version that is active. And then once that is active, you can, if you remember, I had a couple of input variables for my approvals kit, set approval, which is name and price, and that will be showing up in the connector here. So it's sorry, in action here. So it gets the name and price as an input, and then requested by is just a person who's requesting this request. That's all. There's nothing to be done in the Power Automate itself. So all of this internal approvals and monitoring, and then the transitions, all these things happens within the approvals kit based on the records it creates, right? We'll see that right away. So I have done this and I've saved this Power Automate. What I'll do is I'm just going to create, use the app in a day standard Canvas app that's available in Microsoft Doc. And I'm just going to order a coffee machine. And let's just say I'm just going to choose something above 400. I'll go and submit the request. And what it's going to do is it's going to trigger this Power Automate, and we're just going to pretty much have an entry there. Wait for a while. And once it pretty much this Power Automate runs, what it will do is if I go back to the backend, because I need to show the setup as well. So if you just go to the backend of how the data is stored as per the architecture which I showed previously, so you can see the list of workflows that's been triggered. So if I just open the, here's the new one. So you can see that it accepts two variables. So the amount that I submitted is $4.99, and the name I submitted was that particular coffee machine was this. And then the staging and node is pretty much the backend data. So you can see the first stage is running, and then the first node is there, and you can see the first approval is with the Dan. If you remember this process diagram here. So this is what we had, right? Level stage 1, and the node is with Dan. So if I go and you can see this is how it's stored in the backend. Now, eventually, when this runs, there is going to be a bunch of Power Automate that will be creating this record. There will be other different Power Automates that will be picking up this record and sending an email to the particular user. So instead of waiting for that email, what I'll quickly show is the setup for this one. So from setup standpoint, we need the prerequisites or the approvals solution, and then the creator kit. Approvals is we already using the standard approval connector. This will be available in your environment. If not, we can just use this PowerShell to import it, or we can just create a dummy approvals, Power Automate dummy approval, and then delete it. Eventually, this will be installed. And then you can import the creator kit from the app source or PowerShell. And then finally, import this from the approvals, import the business approval kit solution. It is available in the GitHub, which I'll share the links after the session. So you can see this solution comes with a bunch of built-in components, especially if you see the app, the one we are using now, the business approval management app, and then the bunch of cloud flows that comes with it. You can see there are lots of cloud flows to monitor the approvals that we're creating and sending it to the next stage, and then capturing the response, and then all this kind of stuff, right? And then the only thing we need to set up after importing the solution is fixing the custom connector. So you'll need to create an app registration in the Azure, and then we pretty much need to update the credential of this custom connector with your app registration that's been done. So you can just go ahead and just update it, the custom connector with OAuth as a setting, and then you basically fix this client secret ID and client ID and tenant ID, and then it's pretty much standard connector stuff. Once you've done this, that's all. You will be able to start using it right away. So if I go back to this one now, I just saw that I received an email on Dan's profile. So if I just go to Dan's, yeah, there you go. So you can see that this has been submitted, the confirmation approval submitted, and it's for this mission. And I'm just gonna say good and submit it. That's gonna approve it. And once I approve it, what happens is behind the scene, this will create a to update the status. There'll be for automatic triggering again to update the status, and then update the create a next set of approval, which will be using the second stage. Yeah. So in the interest of time, I think we're almost there. So yeah, so that's the high-level setup and how the how it works and what it is used for. And if I go back to the PowerPoint again, this last couple of slides I have there. So this is the learning path URLs. I'm just going to share the chat, all of them, all these URLs here. And this is the new things that the team is working on, like copying and saving the whole approvals instead of creating one by one, and then scheduled reminders, and then notifying the requester and certifying the automation kit connector itself, and escalations and bulk approvals and those kind of stuffs. And I'll share the PowerPoint as well. Yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you. And if there's any question, please let me know.